Business Conversation. My name is Michael A.C. Maynard, and thank you for joining me. As you know, this show happens every Sunday at 2:30 right here on Faith TV, and the show's all about business. So if you're a Christian in business or a Christian that wants to get into business, this is the place to be. And what we really do is we go through a number of business topics, and I use my experience to help you and to guide you and to provide guidance for you. And hopefully by the end of it, you know, you feel encouraged to start a business or to answer that call. And that may be something that's been, you know, in your heart a long time to actually do business. And now is the opportunity to do it. So let me just say welcome. And to my regular viewers, welcome. It's good to have you. So for this show, as always, you know, the format of the show really is for me to kind of encourage you and to share a bit of the word with you, but also actually give you some practical tips and tools on how to get into business. And so I've done so far on a series, it's been very much around marketing and looking at, you know, how to target your audience and how to market appropriately, how to profile your customers. And we've done a number of things like a SWOT analysis and a pest analysis. So it's all part of a bigger series which really sort of says, how do I get more business? And the majority of people that are in business or want to get into, that's one of the questions, how do I get more business? And so marketing and target marketing is a tool to help you do that. And so we're going to go into that a little bit more, and I'm going to continue to emphasize on that. And so you'll have an opportunity to take notes and to obviously email me should you have any problems or anything like that. But before we go there, as always, let me first introduce to you much of what I speak from and much of the guidance that I'm giving comes from a book that I've recently written. It's called How to Build a Christian Business. And let me just emphasize on a couple of things from the beginning. This book has a spiritual undertone in the sense of it's got scriptures to help you that are relevant to your business, but it's very, very practical. So you're not going to you won't buy this and straight away you're going to get a business. You're going to have to work. You're going to have to put it into action. And so it deals with a number of issues that speaks of faith in your business, am I anointed for business, how to do a business plan, how to set my vision, how to plan, just do, you know, day-to-day planning. So it covers a number of things. And what I may do is if we have an opportunity at the end is just to share one of the chapters with you. So this is available. I'm selling this. Please email me. You'll see the instructions come up on the screen, or go onto my website, which is www.michaelacmaynard.com. That's also on the screen. And you can either order directly through there through a link, or you can email me. They're only £10. And yeah, it will be a blessing, not just to you, but you can pass it on to someone else. So how to build a Christian business. So I'm also going to cover a little bit later a word which I've been speaking about on the last few shows. And what I like to do, and the way God speaks to me, is basically I like to take a scripture, for example, and then relate it to business. So we start with the word as the founding, and then we think, well, actually, how does that relate to me on a day-to-day basis? So I'm going to have a short word later on, which I've spoken briefly about in the last two shows, and I'll try and add some more flavour to that later on today as well. And then really, just to kind of to end off, really, you know, I want to encourage you to email me and tweet me. You'll see all the instructions that is coming on the screen. Register on my website for things that are up and coming. And yeah, I would, you know, let's do business together. Let's just link and see where God takes us. So without further ado, as I said, I'm going to go into some teaching a little bit, but we've been basically speaking about marketing. How do you market? How do you progress? How do you get your product out there? You know, no matter what you're doing, whether it's a product or a service, how do you kind of spread the word, if you like? Because that's what we're talking about if we put it into that context. And as I said, we looked a little bit around a SWOT analysis and a pest analysis. And I'm going to emphasize again on the SWOT today, because when you're looking to market your business, one of the things that you should have is a marketing plan. Now, you've probably all heard of a business plan. A marketing plan is pretty much the same in the sense of it sits within the business plan. And all it does, it says how you're going to market your business. It's a plan to market, basically. And that's it. And so we're going to look at what goes into a marketing plan. And we're going to look at the SWOT analysis again. And we'll break that down into different levels. And what we'll try and do from that is work out how you can use your SWOT to actually inform your marketing plan. So, as I said, grab your pens and grab your papers. And even if you're just starting out, it's good at this stage to start to think about some of these things and start to think about what exactly, how am I going to market and how am I going to actually get my product out there. So it's good to get these things here. Now, one of the first things, and I've spoken a bit about this before in a marketing plan, is around a feasibility study. Can I actually do what I'm trying to do? And that requires a little bit of research into costings. It requires research into, is my product good enough? How would I distribute it? You're starting to ask some of these questions. And what I want to do is give a live example of one of my businesses and show you how you can relate that to yours. Okay, so please grab your pens and your pad and your papers, and we're going to talk about marketing, we're going to talk about SWOT, and we're going to go over to the teaching. So let's do it. Okay, so as I said before, we're going to cover and continue on speaking about marketing and speaking about how the right things to put in our marketing plan rather. So what I've tried to do here is I'm going to give you a live example so that you can see how you can relate this to your business. So one of my businesses is I rent out office space, so desk space, and so we'll use that as a prime example. And what that is, first and foremost, is people can call me up if they need a desk space, if they need a hot desk, and my offices they'll come in and rent a desk, they'll have the internet, they'll have printing and all that types of things. So that's the business that we're working with, okay? So it's office desk rental. So if we were looking at, and as I said, we've been speaking about SWOTs and SWOT analysis. If we were looking at the SWOT again, and we're looking at how I'm going to market that, well, as I said, SWOT analysis, it stands for strengths, weakness, opportunities, and threats, okay? So we're going to deal with the strengths part of it, because in your marketing plan, you've got to, as I said in a couple of shows ago, you've got to understand the strengths of your business, and that's what you promote. So if I was looking at my business and I'm looking at my office space, I'd say, well, what are my strengths? What are the strengths of my business? Well, first of all, and I'm not talking about what the business does, the features, and I don't know if you remember we looked at features and benefits, but we're just talking about the strengths here. Well, I've put down for my strengths the location. So my offices are located in a town centre, so it's fairly accessible to pretty much everything, whether you drive or on a bus, so that's a strength of the business. So when I'm now informing my marketing plan and I'm thinking, well, actually, how am I going to market that? That's one of the things that I would put on all of my literature. I would put down that it's easy accessible, it's a town centre location, it's accessible by the train station, which is less than a mile away, there's bus routes and all of that. And that would be one of the things that I promote. So, and we're not talking about how I'm going to do that yet, but I'm saying that's one of the things that I would promote. That would be one of my key, promotional strengths, if you like. So, next, if I were again using the example, friendly staff. So hopefully people that are coming to rent, they'll know that they'll be treated in the correct manner, the staff are friendly. And so what I may do on my website, I may promote that on my website and say, well, there's friendly staff there. They'll meet and greet you. They'll meet and greet your customers. And if you're visiting, anyone's coming into the site, into the offices, they will be greeted appropriately. So it's a benefit, it's something that I'm going to promote on all my literature. Customer service, as I said a little bit around, into friendly staff. So in other words, I will then promote that if you come and rent space off of me, then you'll be treated correctly. And so it's a strength of mine. You know, we're personable here. We're really relational. And you can see that when you start to draw out some of these strengths, they start to then kind of give meat, if you like, to your plan. Because what you're actually saying is, if you're a personable company, or if you're a company of great values, you start to promote that. You know, and that all comes from customer service is one of my strengths. You know, so if I'm doing any marketing literature, any leaflets or anything like that, I have to design those leaflets in the most, if you like, customer-friendly way, because I've acknowledged that that's one of my strengths. And so that's what I'm going to promote. You know, and if your business is a hairdresser's, for example, and I always say that because I have a lot of calls on that from people who are doing hair, then customer service should be one of your strengths. It has to be, because people are coming in, and yes, you could be amazing at doing the hair and your product is brilliant, but how you treat people is going to be just as important. And so if that's you, that's got to be one of your strengths. And so when you're promoting your service, you need to say, you know, you'll get a cup of tea with every visit, or do you know what I mean? You start to, all the things that make people feel welcome, that's what you start to promote. And that informs your marketing plan. And I've also put down flexible service, and that may be more beneficial for my type of business. And that just means one of my strengths is you can rent a desk for a day, or you can rent it for a week, or rent it for a month. It has flexible contracts. And so again, when I'm developing my material, that goes on it. So people know that, oh, actually, this business is accommodating. And you can see by listing these strengths, and I've only listed 4, but by listing these strengths, it starts to tell people the ethos of my company. It starts to tell people how we like to operate, how we like to deal with them. And so when I'm promoting it, my image and my branding and everything must reflect these strengths, because that's what I want to tell people. That's what I want to shout and show the world about. And that's why it's important. So what I want you to do is look at your business. And if you missed the series on SWOT analysis, you can still pick it up from here. Start to list down the strengths of your company. You know, the ultimate goal is to develop a marketing plan, how you're going to get more business. Keep that in your mind. So if you like, put that at the top of the page. How am I going to get more business? One of the ways I'm going to do this is I'm going to internalize. I'm going to look into myself, and I'm going to look at the strengths that I have. And once I've listed those strengths, as I've done there, I'm then going to formalize those strengths into a marketing plan. So I'm going to put them down in a formal structure that then says it tells me and tells others who are working with me how I'm going to go to market. And that means, and here's, you know, the great thing about this, once you've done this and once you've developed it, once you've got your marketing plan, when customers start to come in now, you should be, not all of them, but you should be doing a sample survey of those who have used your service, and it would be interesting to find out if some of these strengths were actually true. So when you've dealt with your customers, what do they say about you? And maybe they will come up with 1 or 2 more strengths that you didn't know you have. So you can actually see now, but once you implement these, the ideal thing is when people are buying from you, they should come up and say, well, actually, you know, they should speak to you, and you should see these things coming in there. So relating to my business, someone could say, this is a great location, you know, or the staff here are really friendly. This is soft intelligence. You know, you're starting to get an idea that it's actually working. People should come and say, they treated me really well. You know, and they still say word of mouth is still one of the most effective ways to promote any business. And so people should say, if the customer service is good, they'll tell other people about it. And then obviously flexible service, people should be able to promote that as well. So you can see that these things actually start to drive your business forward, and that's why they're important. And a lot of small businesses fail this very small but very vital step. It's very important for you to understand your strengths and then obviously test them and see if they're real. So if we were to we're now putting these into our marketing plan, and how would we do that? Well, depending on your business, and every business is different, so I'm going to continue to use one of my businesses as an example. As I said, because I do office space, how I market my business will maybe different than how I market yours. But let's use a common thread first and foremost. So we're in a very social world, or very socially interactive world at the moment, where the internet has bridged countries together, if you like, and we can speak to somebody in another country, or we can purchase something from across the world at the click of a button, and in some instances have it tomorrow, or the day after that. So we're in a very social, inclusive place at the moment. So if you're thinking about marketing your business, one of the key things that you need to think about is the social aspect of it. So everyone these days, whether or not you're clued in or not, everyone these days has to have a website for their business. It's almost basics now. It's almost the standard now. Because especially if you're a global business and or you're not got a shop, you don't have a shop front, or you're looking to sell across the country or across the world, people want to see who you are. They want to see who your business is and what it does. And so you have to have a website. It's your shop front, effectively. It doesn't have to be a massive whiz-bang website. It just needs to show who you are, what you do, what you believe, how people can get your products, how they can contact you should there be a problem, how they can give you feedback. It's just got to be a front that allows people to grasp who you are. And all of us these days, especially those with smartphones, someone says to us, "Oh, do you know about that product?" Straight away we're up onto Google and we're looking to find their site. So it's got to be number one. It's the very basic thing. Second, again, part of this social inclusive world that we're in at the moment, Facebook, Twitter, there are a number of other blogging sites that you could be members of, but you need an online presence. Your business, or you, should be online so that people again can see what you're about. The marketplace is saturated, and so you need to stand out in some way. You need to make sure that people have no excuse not to buy from you. If there's you and your customer, you've got to let them see what makes you different. And what we're seeing in more recent times is people allowing people to look into their lives. Managing directors and chief execs of companies are allowing people to see who they are and what they like, and they're tweeting things around what they had for breakfast, and it may seem all trivial, but the bottom line is, when you understand who somebody is, you're more willing to do business. And the reason is because we do business with other people. No matter how big a company is, no matter how wide or vast it is across the world, we do business from people to people. Sales is from one person to another person. That's it. It's that interaction. So we're in a world now where we want to know who we're buying from. So take the time to create an online profile that if somebody Googles you or Googles your business, they can actually see who you are and they can get an understanding what you do. So we've just looked at basically how to start to build the marketing plan, and that's what we're trying to do. And I'm going to continue that next week because there's so much that needs to go into how marketing your business. And remember, the ultimate question that we're trying to answer is, how do I get more business? And we're seeing that the marketing plan is one of the tools to help us get that. So in other words, how do I spread the word? How do I sell my product? And marketing is a great tool for that. And so we've covered this week. Website, very, very basic thing that you need. And we've not gone into the mechanics of it, but we know it's needed. And we've also looked at your social, your presence, if you like, and that's using social media a little bit. And I encourage you to kind of look into that a little bit more. And if I can set you a challenge over this next week, and that's to start to look at what other people are doing. So look at your competitors. People that are selling products that are similar to you. And rather than looking at them as a negative, that you're up against them, start to look at their online presence and see if you can identify their strengths. Because ultimately their strengths is what they should be promoting. So look at your competitors See if you can identify their strengths and see if you can ascertain a bit about their online presence. So their chief exec or their directors and people who are running the company. See if you can get an understanding of that. And then what we'll do, we'll continue to build the marketing plan next week. So what I want to kind of, the last part of the show, and I'll stay here and do it, and I want to kind of cover a word which I've been speaking about over the last few weeks. And so I'm going to kind of bring that in again and summarize it. And I want to emphasize on a very specific part. But the word, for those who have only just tuned in this week, it's from Matthew 5, verse 14 to 16. And it's a scripture that talks about the light being set on a hill and it cannot be hidden. And we are the light of Christ. And I looked at this and God showed it to me in a very, very standard way, if you like. And I thought, well, if we are a light that cannot be hidden, that means anything that we do, the light that's in us should be reflected through what we do. So if we're in business, for example, the light that is in us should be reflected through our business. And what I realized this then is, well, if in a very practical sense, if my business is set up on a hill, or I'm set up on a hill and I set my business on a hill, and I'm in a darkened world, then it should mean that the light that's shining through me, people should be able to see it through my business because it's a reflection of me. And then I thought, in very practical terms, well, actually, the higher the light climbs is the further it can be seen by. So that determines the type of platform that I put my business on. So, for example, if I have a business on the high street, a shop on the high street, that will be seen by those around me in that area. If I then want to be seen nationally, I have to do one of two things. I have to create a national presence, a higher hill or a higher platform. And that can be done through a website, or it could be done through advertising nationally. And again, if I then want to be seen internationally, I then could reflect that through a website and I could then market internationally. So you can see that each level, each platform, the higher I go is the greater exposure that I have. And obviously attached to each of those things is different things like cost. If you're going to market internationally, there's a different cost and so forth. But what I wanted to kind of bring across and what I understood is, well, if I am to let my light shine before men, and that's what verse 16 says, I realize that this is not spiritual as such, this is practical. Because the scripture says, let my light shine before men. Now, it's men that, or men, women, obviously, people who are going to buy my product. So let this light shine that's within me. Let my business reflect the light of God that's in me. But then it led to another question. Well, if I'm reflecting what's in me, and let's say this light is radiating from me and people are going to see me and all of this good stuff, it then made me question, is my product any good? Because ultimately, what's reflected is going to be exposed. And the thing is, if your product is not very good, that's what's going to be shown. If your product is bad or it has defaults or it's not made right or your service is not good, that's what's going to be shown. So you need to make sure the product that you are reflecting, the service that you're reflecting, the business that you're developing has to be right. It has to be, it's got to be worthy of exposure. And I also realized then, what makes it good? Excuse me, what makes it good? And so my product must meet your expectation. So let's give a practical example. You're listening to this broadcast, you're watching it today. What I'm giving you must be meeting your expectation. So you want the word, you want to know how to progress your business, so what I give to you must tell you that. If it doesn't do that, I've not met your expectation, and I can argue it's not good. Do you see what I mean? When you look at the beginning of the scripture where God said, let there be, and the Bible says he saw it and it was good because it did what he purposed it to do. It wasn't just, he didn't just do it because he could or because he had a hobby or because, he'd done it because it had to meet a purpose. The sun had to have a purpose when he created it. And so he said it's good because it's doing what he asked it to do. The sea, the fish, the birds, all of that. God said it was good. Same with mankind. It was good. In other words, we should be doing what he's asked us to do. Excuse me. So, what determines if it's good? We must meet or exceed our customer's expectation. And then it leads to the question, what does my customer expect from my product? And so that's where you then look into it a little bit deeper and think to yourself, what does the customer expect? What do they expect? And I gave the example earlier of one of my businesses in the office space. Customers, when they come in to the office, they expect it to have good internet speed. They expect it to be clean, professional. They expect it to have easy access. They expect the facilities to be right. And they have an expectation on what they would get from an office. So this very, very small word, and I'm going to keep speaking on it from weeks to weeks, this very small word that talks about exposure and it talks about light can be used for our business if we get it right. So just take some time to think about this and we'll move on to it more over the next week. Well, that's it. My time's up. I hope you've enjoyed this show. It's around marketing. It's around business. It's around the word. I'm Michael A.C. Maynard, and one of the scriptures that I stand by, that I live by, is in Luke, where it talks about the servant goes away, is given money, and the expectation on the master was that he does business until he comes. And I believe that's what God is speaking to us today. If you're sitting there and you know you should be doing your business, or you are doing a business, the command to you is to do business until God comes. And the command even further is to turn a profit. God bless you. I'll see you right here next week, 2:30 on Faith TV. Tell your friends and let's do business.